Okay, so coming to 2017, look at this film. I'll just go through the questions here. Here, one thing. What is a pure public good? How is it different from a quasi public good? That is easy. That's a normal one. You can handle. Okay. Then why does a free market overproduce goods with negative externalities? That is also fine. That was there in the past paper. Then here, major sources of excise tax revenue. Now this was something very new for us, guys. Now, when we were studying in 2017, we only know there are types of tax. Income tax is there, VAT is there, excise is there, this is there. But we don't know what is inside excise. I remember excise there were on alcohol and stuff. But 4 marks to write, you had to write 4 points. That was a little tricky. Then next one. This is the one that current context they gave. I think this has to be 4 and 4. No, this is not 2. No, 2 marks. No, this has to be 4 marks. I think, right? So they had a 4-mark question. Okay. Sri Lanka's public finance is at a perilous state. Now, when I was writing A levels, I didn't even know what is this perilous. Come on, they put new words. You don't study anything like this. No, when in your paper, right? All of a sudden, a new word. Okay. Identify the major weaknesses in public finance at present. So all weaknesses, full current context question. Then again, question number 5. Now see, now in 2017 and all, guys, there were very big weaknesses. Now in 2021, with quota coming, reducing taxes, COVID and expenditure going up, you can write so much. Now in 2016, 17 and those years, those were normal years. So questions like this is like a big thing for us now. Because we've not even talked about, even our teachers don't talk about, they'll just talk about our revenue has come down a little, expenditure has gone up a little, that's all. Okay. Then even see question 5, state the measures taken by the government to address the critical public issues. So all of that was current context. This was current context. This was also 8 marks of current context. This 4 marks people were not sure of what to exactly write. So question was comparatively hard. So that can happen in your year also if the latest question is G. We'll see. Latest question, I can't remember what exactly, but I remember it was not that hard. We'll see. Okay. So let's go to the questions. What is a pure public good? This one I'm not going to explain. We are done. How does it differ from a quasi-public good? Now, what is a quasi-public good? A quasi-public or a semi-public good is it's non-excludable, but it's non-rival, but it is excludable. So you need to highlight the difference. So you need to say that, look here, quasi-public goods, examples, things like highways, right? They are non-rival until it reaches full capacity, similar to a pure public good. However, a quasi-public good is excludable. That means if a consumer does not pay a price for such good, they can be exempted from consuming that. Example, if a consumer does not pay, let's say, does not purchase the ticket to enter the museum, he will not be allowed to go in. You can give a small example if you feel like, Lamai, now you all know this, but if you feel like your explanation is not clear, give an example always. Always nice to do that. You're explaining quasi-public, you're saying, look here, this is excludable. But if you feel your words are not the exact words, give a small example saying, a consumer who buys if a consumer does not buy the ticket to enter the museum, he will not be allowed to go inside. Simple, excludable. Or you can give a highway example and you can explain. Is that okay, guys? Question 1. Pure public good and how does it differ from a quasi-public good? Fine. That's the easy one. Yes, club goods are semi-public. You can consider. So quasi-public can be called as club goods, can be called as semi-public. Then Lamai, question number 2. This is also easy. Same thing that we did before. Can someone give me the question number, guys? Why does a free market overproduce goods with negative externalities? Ideally, it has to be the negative externality in production. Negative in production is what you have to draw. We did this now in a couple of papers before. Question number 2015. Number. Question 7, part 2. Okay. So this is the same question as that. So why does a market overproduce with negative externalities? You draw the diagram. say that the market economy looks at only their private cost. They ignore the external cost. There is a much higher social cost, but since they only consider their private cost, what happens? They end up overproducing. Also, you can talk about they're charging a price that is too low. You can explain the story. So 2 marks you will get for your diagram, 2 marks for your explanation. And remember, guys, the diagram also has to be explained. You need to say, according to the diagram, this is the social optimal level. However, market is producing at this level, so they are overproducing it. Right? You can put a P1, P2, Q1, Q2, and you can explain. So same explanation as the 2015 A levels question 7 part. Mainly it's a negative externality in production, but if you want, you can pre-market overproducing. Yeah, if you want, you can talk about a negative externality in consumption all. So they should give marks for that. There's an alternative answer. Fine, makes sense, because even a negative externality in consumption, they are overconsumed. Overconsumed means automatically it's overproduced. So that's okay, but you stick with this negative externality in production. Check. Easy question. Then number 3. What are the major sources of excise revenue in Sri Lanka? Now, what is the excise tax? Excise revenue or excise duty is put to discourage consumption. What kind of things? Where do you have excise duty? I'll show you the some actual numbers. Remember, it was there in my financial sector. If you look at government revenue, these are the bigger ones recently. Now, recently, there is no excise on motor vehicles because we have banned motor vehicle imports. So there is nothing much. Here, see, the biggest excise is number 1, liquor. Okay. Then you have tobacco or cigarettes and petroleum. So those have to be definitely there in your paper. If they ask in the same question in 2022, you have to say liquor, tobacco, and petroleum. Those are the main. We'll highlight those. Liquor, tobacco or cigarettes, and then you should also have petrol. Those are the main. What else? So motor vehicles was there in the past, Lamai. It's not there now. Now you have to find out what is there inside this other. Now here they have given his. They have given liquor, tobacco, and they have given other. Here other there is 98. That means there is a lot of other. So what is the other? You should figure that out from the central bank report. I think we'll go to government revenue. They will give something. Total government revenue. Each paragraph is about 1. Okay, this is about income tax. This is about VAT. These excise. Yes, we'll just read this and see. Revenue from excise duties grew by 11.7% in 2022 in nominal terms over the preceding year. Benefits from increased collection of excise on liquor and cigarettes. So liquor and cigarette we already told. According revenue from excise duties increased. This cigarettes, tobacco. Okay. Upward revisions were there. Cigarettes. Okay. In addition to excise duties, growth in cigarette sales contribute to higher revenue collection. Okay. You see there was some revenue from excise duty on motor vehicles further declined by 19.9% to this thing with the continuation of restrictions of motor vehicle imports. Remember I told you. Now earlier, probably in your 2017 paper, motor vehicle will also be a part. But now you can write motor vehicles, but motor vehicle imports have fallen a lot. No, you can't import. Okay. Moreover, here petroleum products, this is one. We wrote this declined. They're not talking about anything else, no? Compared to this, reduction in important petroleum products, liquidity shortage, revenue from yes. Okay, so mainly this case again, cigarettes, alcoholic beverages, and petroleum products. So probably in Sri Lanka in the latest years, now those are the main 3 gates. There can be some other small ones. It's okay. Yeah, just mentioning the products are fine. In 2022, no, excise is lower than that. Excise is the third. Why is petroleum discouraged? Because there is this one. Whenever you're importing petroleum, whenever you're importing petrol, diesel, that's foreign reserves going out of the country. So you discourage petrol. That's why now, even if they open imports of motor vehicles, they will open the import of motor vehicles for electric vehicles. I think they did that reason. Imports of electric vehicles, this thing. Because now if people import vehicles on one side, money is going out. And in addition to that, they'll have to pump more petrol and diesel. For that also money will go out. No? So therefore, they will only open probably the import of motor vehicles of electric motor vehicles. So you can say motor vehicles have been there, but not anymore, but probably in the future. Once they remove motor vehicle restrictions, there will be one on motor vehicles also. Is that okay? Yes, in 2022, income is the high. Yes, we went through those multiple times, probably in the MCQs also. What are the top three and all? Just see, but once I upload the recording in case you miss. Okay. Okay. Question number 4. Sri Lanka's public finance is at a perilous state. Identify the major weaknesses in public finance. So we'll forget about whatever that is there in the marking scheme. I don't know whatever that is there in the marking scheme. Can we talk about, can you all give me 4 proper weaknesses in Sri Lanka's public finance? If you talk about, let's say, the recent years, 21, 22. When you say public finance, that is revenue, expenditure, debt, everything. Huh? So what can you say? You can say the major weaknesses. What are the weaknesses? You can talk about, okay, number 1, reduction in revenue as a percentage of GDP. And how can you explain this? Let's remember, my tax revenue in rupee terms have not fallen. Now, last year, tax revenue in rupee terms increased a lot. Why? Because when there is inflation, right, fat and all is high in our. So, in rupee terms, it has increased. But as a percentage of GDP, it has not changed. That's what we are having. So, reduction in revenue to GDP, government revenue as a percentage of GDP. So, give some numbers. In 2021, in 2022, how much were these? And give some numbers. Okay, so 2021, 8.3%. 2022 also, CBSL report says 8.2. The 2023 statistics says 8.3. But you go as 8.2, no problem. And you can show that, look here, there has been a reduction in government revenue as a percentage of GDP. That's one. And then you can also give a reason for this, guys. The reason for this could be what? The reason for this could be, right, the large tax cuts, right, the VAT exemptions that were given, especially in 2020 and all, the VAT exemptions, the tax cuts and all of those. Okay. Can we give statistical data? Yes, you can. You can use statistical data and you can. Then, Lamai, that's one. Another thing that you can highlight. So identify this. Now I'm saying one small line, right? Your one point has to be around 2 to 3 lines. That's what identify. You can talk about Lamai, very high interest payments. No, that's another issue. No? Very high interest payments. You can say, look here, our interest payments. You can talk. Look here, early interest payments are this much. Now with all the loans, now the interest payments are very high. It reduces, let's say, public savings. You can talk about that. Now, then you can also talk about Lamai, our state-owned enterprises making losses. Remember, our SOEs, state-owned enterprises, all of these fellows now, is all of this is there in my fast active, right? If you were there, remember we did a whole week on current context. The entire week we learned current context issues in Sri Lanka's public finance. It should be there in my theory or revision tunes also. Theory, I'm not very sure, but revision, I remember there were this huge graphs and around 2-3 pages of a big note on the different issues that we had. Make sure that you all know this. So you can talk about this. Our state-owned enterprises making losses. And what else can you write down? 4 main points. Government encourages positive externalities by giving license. Licenses are usually discourage negative externalities. Anything else? Revenue has been falling, interest payments have been rising, state-owned enterprises have been making losses and losses. And you can also talk about, Lamai, unsustainable debt. Given that we've had budget deficits for so long, right? Now our debt has become unsustainable. So because of this only, Lamai, number one, we defaulted our foreign loans. We defaulted the foreign. Last year we said we can't pay. And in addition to this, also our domestic debt, right? Our domestic debt, some of it now we are restructuring. Now, even our foreign loans we are restructuring, domestic debt also some of it we are restructuring. Because we can't pay restructuring, then we are now negotiating with the creditors, trying to reduce the amount of loan, trying to reduce the interest rate, extend the maturity. We are trying to do different things. So you can talk about those. Those are also major weakness, having unsustainable levels of government debt and having a very poor state-owned enterprise sector where they are keeping on making losses. Inefficiencies there, very high levels of interest payment. Fiscal slippages, which one exactly? You can also talk about this, Lama. You can talk about now weaknesses. You can talk about inefficiencies in the inefficiency and the corruption in what? In government transfers. So our transfers and all, guys, sometimes we give it to the people who don't need. Right now, let's say, for example, Samurdhi. Some people, not 20 years ago, they were poor, they were getting Samurdhi. They're still getting some. Those kind of very risky. Negative balance in BOP, not a very thing that is relevant here. Now, when they say public finance, public means government's finance. No? So you need to talk about government revenue, government expenditure, government debt. Those are the main ones. Don't talk a lot about BOP and stuff. Not very relevant. Okay. Can you all do that? If someone has any of my tunes, guys, can you all let me know a page number? Where we talked about this. I remember there was a whole 3-4 page. Okay, so okay, you can talk about high reliance on domestic financing leading to crowding out effects and all of that. Yes, you can talk about domestic financing. All this domestic financing, you can say, leading to crowding out effects, leading to increase in the interest rate. And you can also talk about inflationary impacts, right, of the whole financing the budget through domestic sources. You can talk about all of that. Is that okay? Chip? Question 4. Yeah. Okay. Then question number 5. Because these kind of things can come in your paper. They will not word it the same way, but they can ask what are the fiscal issues in, let's say, the public finance, or the issues in government revenue, issues in government expenditures. Make sure you know some of this to properly write. Then Lamai will go to 5. State briefly the important measures taken by Sri Lanka in the recent years to address these issues. Now, what did we do? We'll forget about what's in 2017. In 2022 and all, what did we do, guys? Now, last year, this year, okay? One thing that you can definitely highlight is the increase in the tax rates. Okay, so especially income tax, we increased the tax rate. We increased VAT. That is one. That's one thing that we are doing. In addition to this, we've also cut off non-essential government expenditure. Now, government is not very transparent on this what and what they have cut off, but mainly they have cut off a lot of non-essential, mainly capex, capital expenditure has been cut off. They have also, yes, reduced tax exemptions, reduced tax exemptions, and you can say tax exemptions, and more nicer way to say this, Lama, is rationalizing the tax system. So, rationalizing means now seeing whether these tax incentives are needed or not. Now, for example, let's say 10 years ago, let's say MAS got a tax incentive, let's say. But now let's say that is not valid anymore. So now you have to remove those. So then they will also be paying taxes. Then our tax will increase. And they've also taken measures now to widen the tax base. Widen the tax base. You can say, for example, by 2025, they are looking at implementing a property tax. So this is widening the tax base, taxing more and more goods and services. Then what else can we give now? You can also talk about Ramai, restructuring domestic debt. This also can be a measure now. Restructuring domestic debt, because our domestic and you can say external debt. So our debt has been very high. So we had to pay so much of interest payments. Now we are restructuring those. We are negotiating and trying to bring down and all of that. Yes, you can say measures taken to improve tax administration. So tax administration, you know, they have come up with this online portals and different stuff. I can't remember the exact names of it. They've come. Okay. What? Improving tax administration and you can say tax collection. Yes. IMF, not really. That's not a measure that we have taken. You can say going to the IMF as a measure of, let's say, something with BOP and stuff. For those you can talk about IMF. Here don't talk about much, but remember IMF's main target is also to reduce government debt. Yes, you can talk about measures taken to improve tax compliance, no problem. So those are the main things that we have done recently. You can back it up with certain examples, it will be nice. Amendments of transfers, yes. Now, for example, guys, now remember, given that our transfers are inefficient, now see what are they doing? They are cutting off things like Samurdhi, and they're moving into something called Aswasuma. No? Remember we talked about Aswasuma. They're moving into this and coming into something called Aswasuma. So that is also something that you can write to make it more effective. Yes, you can talk about privatizing. They haven't privatized anything yet, but you can talk about government is considering privatizing certain loss-making state-owned enterprise. Still, they haven't privatized. Still, they were not able to sell, but they are considering now. So they are thinking of privatizing. They have called people to buy, but no one is coming. You can't sell it in 1 or 2 days now. You can talk. Revenue-based fiscal consolidation means where you make your budget and all mainly based on revenue. Because in Sri Lanka, what is revenue-based fiscal consolidation? That is where your focus is on revenue. Now in Sri Lanka, you can't reduce expenditure. No. You can't reduce salaries. You can't reduce transfers. You can't, let's say, cut off interest pay. So expenditure is very rigid. That also you all can write, Lamai. A weakness in the public sector. For this one, you can say rigidity in government expense. Rigidity in government expense. Now things like interest payments, things like pensions, things like salaries, and you can't remove, right? You can't reduce also. So it's very rigid. It's very hard to change. You can talk about that's also weakness. That is why, Lamai, in Sri Lanka we have revenue-based fiscal consolidation. Revenue-based fiscal consolidation means where you focus on the revenue. You don't focus on not that you don't focus on the expenditure, because you can't do much with the expenditure. And if you're reducing expenditure means economic growth is hampered. Let's say government is not spending on paying proper salaries. Government is not expanding and let's say starting new schools. Government is not, let's say facilitating the hospitals properly. So government reducing expenditure, guys, is indirectly bad for the economy also. Now, there is a thing where you remember in unit number 11 and 12, we learned sustainable development goals. Remember, there are 17 SDGs, no poverty, zero hunger, basic education. There are 17 goals like that. So to reach those goals by 2030, the UN has estimated that countries like Sri Lanka and all should at least be spending around 18 to 20% of GDP. So government expenditure has to be around close to that amount. Otherwise, we can't meet those goals, guys. Those goals are a bit of a serious thing. Every country will try to somehow meet those goals. So proper education, proper healthcare, ending poverty. Now to end poverty, you have to give transfers. Now you can't cut off Samurdhi and Aswasam and say, no more, you die in hunger, I don't care, I'm not spending. You can't do those, no? So removing expenditure, non-essential expenditure, yes, you can cut off. But cutting off expenditure is actually a bad thing, because that will be very bad for the economy in the future. People can go into poverty. And there can be so many issues. That's why in Sri Lanka, we don't focus too much about cutting those expenditures. Our main focus is on improving the revenue. Okay? You can highlight those. We'll wrap it up there, guys, since I need to head to work as well. Any question? CapEx is capital expenditure. The big expenditure on acquisition of real assets and all of that. Shape. That was a good question. Question 5. Question number 4. And this is question number 3. 1 and 2 were basically very easy. 3, 4, and 5 are good questions that you all can learn some stuff, which 4 and 5 can be repeated in your year as well. Have an idea. Yeah. So with that, we'll call it a day for today. And I'll see you all most likely tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll have a little bit of a longer class, and we'll finish all the past papers from 18 to 22. Okay. So that's it. I'll see you all tomorrow. If you have questions, they and type. I know, bro.